From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Since we're about to talk about Chicago, we'd be remiss if we didn't remark upon the passing of White Sox Cy Young Award winner Lamar Hoyt yesterday. It was announced.
Yeah, you tweeted that out, I saw.
Passed away at the age of 66. He had a long fight with cancer. Lamar Hoyt, I don't know, it harkens back to a great era of baseball for me. That 83 winning ugly team. He goes 24-10, wins the Cy Young. That was just one of the great teams, great experiences. It made
you a Sox fan, right?
Well, it made me fall in love with baseball, and particularly the White Sox.
So he had a profound effect on you. That's good.
Well, it was just a different time in baseball. I mean, it's ironic we talk about it against the news yesterday of a lockout by Major League Baseball owners because of a contractual impasse, something we haven't seen since '94. But, I mean, on that team, a bygone era, that's not that long ago. It's 35 years. On that team was Kevin Hickey. Kevin Hickey was a reliever. Kevin Hickey was a 16-inch softball player that somebody saw playing softball, I think in Brighton Park.
Oh, awesome.
He was invited to an open tryout for the White Sox.
So awesome.
And they signed him to a minor league contract, $500 a month to play in the minors, and eventually made his way, up to the majors. Obviously, he was on the 83 AL Western Division winning Chicago White Sox, the winning ugly White Sox. So it's just like it was just a completely different era of baseball that doesn't seem that long ago, and Lamar Hoyt was a big part of it. So anyway, on the passing of Lamar Hoyt and my youth. For a larger discussion of Chicago as it impacts the lives of all its denizens, and Cook County for that matter, with Cook County, as we reported yesterday, passing 1,000 murders, the grim milestone of 1,000 murders in calendar year 2021. Pleased to be joined by Matt Rosenberg, who's the author of What Next, Chicago? Notes of a Pissed-Off Native Son. And he is also the son of my favorite radio talk show host of all time. And that is Milt Rosenberg, who I'm sure many of you listen to, his Extension 720 program. I had the occasion to break bread with Milt and his wife on a couple of occasions.
Good.
And what a treat that was. I mean, he was sort of not the last of the Mohicans, but there are not a whole lot of public intellectuals left, particularly on radio, for goodness sakes. And he was a public intellectual. That was must listen to radio if you wanted to be a civilized person, as far as I'm concerned. Matt Rosenberg, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, Amy, pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Did you want to comment on Lamar Hoyt at all before we start?
Or Ron Kittle or anybody on the 83 White Sox.
Well, yes.
The
living or the dead.
I want to talk about Billy Williams and Adolfo Phillips and Jim Hickman, okay?
Okay.
Glenn Becker, Don Kessinger, Ron Santo, and Ernie Banks, and Randy Hundley and Fergie Jenkins.
You're on the wrong side of town, Matt. We don't talk about that team here.
I know, and I'm from the South Side.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, right. Well, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm from Wheaton, and I'm a Sox fan, so that runs counter as well. All right. Well, let's talk about a more serious matter, unfortunately, and that's those 800 murders in Chicago this year. After murders and shootings went up 50+%, both categories last year, we're going to be above those numbers again this year. And there doesn't seem to be any end in sight or any change in course from the political leadership of the city.
No, it's a really messed up situation, and we need better political leadership for sure. The way we talk about race, responsibility, child rearing, parenting, the approach we take to school choice, which is not nearly serious enough in greater Chicagoland. All of these things are factors, but I think really it starts with a mayor who uses the bully pulpit in the right way to make it clear that we appreciate police and to get police on foot patrol in the highest crime neighborhoods. One of the things I had a chance to do in researching my book was to review the social science literature on foot patrols targeted to high crime neighborhoods, and it makes a difference. Long story short, there are 7 or 8, methodologically valid studies from around the country in different cities where they tried this and found a quantitative effect. And by the way, one of those cities was Chicago, under Rahm Emanuel for about 2 years when Gary McCarthy was police chief. They did something called Operation Impact, and it made a significant dent in violent crime. So we need to get back to that. Instead, the cops are riding around in their cars, responding to 911 calls. You know, the detectives are picking up bullet casings after the fact. We've got to do better.
They're not even picking up bullet casings unless somebody's been hit. We had a shooting on our street, and they said, well, did anybody get injured? And I said, no, but we have the bullet casing here. They didn't even pick it up. I mean, that's how bad it is. Unless someone's hit, they're not coming to your door. And then when you do call 911, you have an emergency, wait times are astronomical right now, anywhere between 9 to 20 minutes. So she needs to hire more officers, don't you think, and maybe train some new officers right away? That would help.
Absolutely. And, you know, who would want to come be a cop here in Chicago right now, looking at the political circus that we've got? It cuts across policing. It cuts across nearly every area of public policy. The default explanation for any problem is systemic racism, and that's Lori Lightfoot's unified theory to explain every problem, particularly those affecting the African American community. It's, you know, redolent of, the BLM shtick. And I went down to the South Side again and again during my stay here in 2020. I'm back here again, by the way. I've been on the scene since early September here in Chicagoland. But last year I moved into Bridgeport and went down to places like Roseland and Washington Heights and Englewood, West Englewood. And what I heard from blacks and Latinos that I talked to is, you know, old-fashioned conservative values. Go figure. They want more and better cops. They want more school choice, and they're very big on faith, family, and especially entrepreneurialism. So it's a vast gulf between what we hear in corporate media and what people are actually talking about.
Well, that's interesting, and I read your piece, the guest column you posted over at John Cass's site, johncastnews.com, about liberal educated Hyde Parkers getting schooled in epistemology. But are they? I mean, you know, we need better political leadership. Well, that's a reflection of not just the offerings, but the attitude of the electorate. And do you really see in places like Hyde Park an attitudinal adjustment against the same sort of big government identitarian politics that have beset the city for the last 50 years?
Good question, Dan. And no, I don't. And I think that there's going to need to be a bottom-up revolution that brings more types of people into the political equation in Chicago than your average, you know, Hyde Park progressive, or let's call them now questioning progressives. You know, those same people are in Wicker Park and Bucktown, which are being racked with carjackings. Yeah. Does it change their identitarian, you know, a big government focus? Generally speaking, no. But what's interesting is looking at the population changes demographically by race in Chicago over the last 4 decades. And this has been publicized, written about recently in the Tribune. I crunched the numbers, and there's been a drop by 1/3 since 1980 in the black population of Chicago and in the white population of the city, while Latinos are up dramatically and Asians even more so. So, you know, shorthand here, those groups, Latinos and Asians, are much more focused more consistently on self-advancement, faith, and family. So over time, maybe there needs to be like a new Chicago Reform Party. I know technically our elections are nonpartisan, but that certainly hasn't stopped the Democratic Socialists of America from taking more council seats. So get out there with a new pitch. Don't put an R next to it, and try and make change. And speaking of change, I think we ought to change the timing of our city elections. I've mentioned this before, but, off years, early months of the year, 33% turnout versus 70% from Chicago voters when they're voting for a president. So I think that makes a big difference. We'd have to change state law.
Sure.
Yeah,
and
but do you think that's
why?
gonna? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Why would those
would
in
change.
charge want to walk away from a controlled vote?
Oh, they absolutely wouldn't. And I mean, this really, in the end, I don't know if you agree, Dan, this traces back to who's going to run for office? What kind of money are they going to bring to it? What kind of paid media are they going to buy to message on this? But the message is damning. I mean, yes, the people in charge want to essentially limit voting to public employee union members and maybe employees of large city contractors. It's part of the same old rotten politics that Lori Lightfoot said she would change. But she's backed off on term limits for mayor and the council. She's backed off on independent ward mapping, an issue very much in the news these days. Why would she go the extra mile on this? So, who's going to run for mayor or city council on a real reform message and then implement it? So we need to shake things up. But, insiders tell me the business community has kind of really lost its voice. Reformers get co-opted. It's like, where is the hope? So some people say we have to bottom out here financially and on public safety before change happens. I'd like to think that something other than the apocalypse could serve as a stimulus here.
Yeah, I'd like to think that too, but I'm not sure I do. Matt Rosenberg, author of What Next Chicago? Notes of a Pissed Off Native Son. Matt, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, real pleasure. People can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble to find the book.
All right. Thank you so much. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You've made the switch, and it feels so good. You've switched to